Please take your seats. I'm Mary Ellen Shiflett, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, and I am so happy to see all of you here for this candidate forum. I was a history teacher, and I think I just can't stop doing it, although I've been retired about 10 years now. But I would like you all to know, to understand how this candidate forum fits into what we do as a League of Women Voters. We're 102 years old, and the League came out of the suffrage movement. When the suffragists realized that after 72 years they were finally going to actually get vote for women, they also realized that women had never voted and probably didn't have a clue as to what they were supposed to do, or how to vote, or where to vote, or who to vote for. And so they decided another organization needed to be founded to help women voters learn about the voting process. And they established the League of Women Voters. So that's where we came from. So this morning we're continuing that work because this is, in my opinion, I have a master's in information science, so information is really important to me. And in my opinion, I think that giving people an opportunity to hear the candidates in person, actually talking about what's important to them, that's about the best thing we can do to find out what we need to know to vote, having the information we need to make the decision. Now, logistics, those of you who have lunch ordered, we have box lunches around the screen over there. Get in line, candidates please go first. And when everybody is served, as soon as I get mine, I'll be last in line. I'll come in, put the box down, and we'll start. Okay? Everybody got it? Go right ahead. Lunch ordered. We have box lunches around the screen over there. Get in line, candidates please go first. And when everybody is served, as soon as I get mine, I'll be last in line. I'll come in, put the box down, and we'll start. Okay? Everybody got it? Go right ahead.
Program after her introduction. The questions were created by League members, so each candidate will be given equal time to present themselves and answer questions. While some of the questions have been pre-selected, members of the audience can use the 3x5 cards on the tables and on the clipboards in the back to create their own questions. So if you choose to write a question, thank you. Turn off your cell phones, please, or put them on vibrate. If you choose to write a question, once you're ready with your question, just hold it up and someone will come by and pick it up, bring it up here to our table, and then we will screen the questions just to be sure that we don't have 6 questions about this and 10 questions about that, trying to have a variety of topics. So that'll be for the last 10 minutes. If we have lots of questions, I know we won't get to all of them, but we'll ask as many as possible. For those questions, candidates will have 1 minute of time to respond. So the forum is going to be recorded. It's not being live streamed. It will be available for replay on the LWVPT YouTube channel as well as lwvpt.org at sometime, hopefully later in the week. Also wanted to talk to you a little bit about Vote 411. It's the one-stop shop for voters across the U.S. All of our candidates present today have gone in and put their information into Vote 411. So if you as a voter need extra information about a certain race and you don't know enough about both candidates, please put your address in. It will show your ballot. You can compare candidates' views. It's apples to apples on those on that site. It can tell you where to vote, what the polling hours are, every kind of information that you need about voting. One of the things that our Voter Services Committee does is really strive to get 100% participation from candidates. It doesn't always work out that way, so if you have one of your candidates who hasn't replied, feel free to contact them through their Facebook page or their campaign page and encourage them to participate. So I'd like to introduce our moderator, Elma Hairston. Elma is a small business owner, a consultant, a best-selling author. She's known for her key insights for business and personal growth, dedicated to maximizing potential in business, politics, and the community. Please welcome Elma.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so very much for participating with us today. I'll begin by introducing our at-large candidates for the Board of Education and then outline the rules. First, candidate Demetria Carter. Ms. Carter. Candidate Alan Shiraz. Mr. Shiraz. Now I'll cover the rules. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for opening remarks. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question, and please limit your responses to your own ideas and your own campaign. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for a closing remarks. The candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions from the audience. Each candidate agrees to the public review of the forum by participating in the forum. Each candidate agrees to participate in the candidate forum as stated in their letter of invitation. All candidate remarks will be timed to ensure that equal opportunity is given to speak. There will be 2 timers. One will keep track of the time using a smartphone. The other will hold up signs for 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. I'd like to identify the timers so you will see who they are. Great, thank you. I will rotate the order of questioning so that each candidate has an opportunity to start first. But before I start, allow me to communicate the duties of the Board of Education as retrieved from their website. Members establish policies that govern our school system, including the curriculum, facilities, financial resources, and personnel. The board evaluates the district's achievement and monitors the progress, making sure that all the goals are met. And we will now begin with our opening remarks. We will start with Mr. Shiraz.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My thanks to Mary Ellen and to Donna and to Dr. Hairston, and greetings to you, Ms. Carter. It is good to be with the league again. It has been a joy to be able to join you for previous events. And it is good to be here at First Pres, and thanks to Reverend Jill Duffield, my friend, for hosting this event. I am the pastor of First Baptist Church down the street. In mixed company, I like to clarify that we are distinct among Baptist churches. As a mainline Baptist congregation, meaning that we embrace women in leadership alongside of men. We communicate God's welcome and affirmation of all people. We are passionate about justice and the common good. And that is part of what brings me to this role, seeking this role. I believe that our faith, our convictions should flow out into meaningful impact in our community. And I think that our schools are one of the best places where we can make that impact. I bring that also as the son of a public school teacher and an advocate for teachers. A shout out to Mrs. Shiraz, Lime Street Elementary's Teacher of the Year, circa 1996. I am also the spouse of a public school advocate and 2-term PTA president. Grateful my wife Jenny could join us today. Those are COVID years, by the way, so extra credit for that. And finally, I am a parent of 4 GCS students in grades 7, 5, 2, and 1. And on all of these intersecting identities of my life, I am absolutely committed to our schools as the place where we can make the largest collective impact, not only for my children, but for 70,000 children. I want to seek what is right for my kids, yes, but even more, I want to seek what is just for all of our children. We can do that together in our schools, and that's why I'm running.
Ms. Carter?
Can I put this closer? It'll pick up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Demetria Carter. I'm running for the at-large seat on the Guilford County School Board. I live in High Point. I've been there for 3 years. I moved down from the Washington, D.C. area at the end of 2019. I've worked for the federal government for 40 plus years, including in those stints, I worked for companies that had contracts with the federal government. So if you know Washington, D.C., you know Washington, D.C. is a government town. That is the industry. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration from George Mason University in Annandale, Virginia. I have a law degree from Duke University, down the road a bit. There are 4 things to my 4 pillars, I like to call them, to my campaign. Parents need to be involved in the education of their children. They are their child's first teacher. They may be their child's last teacher, but they are clearly the first teacher, and they need to be involved. Transparency is the watchword here. They need to know what's going on, what their child is being taught, by whom, when, and where. No secrecy at all. Students, every student can excel. So I have to question why so many black and brown students within Guilford County are failing. Up to 60% are failing to read proficiently at particular grade levels. In math, I have to stop.
Thank you for being obedient. We will start with our first question. What is your previous experience and involvement in the education of children that qualify you to serve on the Board of Education? We'll start with Ms. Carter.
I have no background in education, but you don't need that to be a board member. A board member and the board manages the school district. I have plenty of experience as a manager for the federal government. I have managed programs. I have managed offices. I have managed the work of people. I have evaluated programs. I know how to hire and I know how to fire. Thank you.
Mr. Shiraz?
Thank you for the question. I've shared some of my own personal investment. Certainly as a father, I am deeply invested in our public schools, and much of my experience in Guilford County schools has occurred through my children's education here over the last 8 years. Beyond that, in my professional life, I have always been involved in community organizing and advocacy efforts, and education is such a common ground issue around which people of all backgrounds can gather. And so it has been a common ground issue for my congregation here in Greensboro that I've served for now over 9 years, as it was for the congregation I served in New York City. In New York City, in the heart of Manhattan, we had an after-school program for kids. We had a lot of advocacy efforts around education. We had an after-school program for teenagers where we helped with homework, and we tried to help with character education and with reading and development. Here at First Baptist, our congregation has a preschool. where we prepare children to enter into our school system. We have also been active through the Guilford Education Alliance in partnership with various elementary schools. We partnered with Bessemer Elementary School for several years, and more recently with Washington Montessori, where they're doing tremendous work, and I celebrate the leadership of those educators, and especially Principal Paul Travers, recently recognized as our Principal of the Year here in Guilford County. And so my professional life has intersected with education. It has been an extension of the work that I do. I also have a great deal of experience in institutional leadership, and I understand collaborative models of leadership where we work together to accomplish the most good. And finally, I'm deeply invested in this community. My spouse and I love Guilford County. We love our home in Greensboro, which is just around the corner right here in Fisher Park. We've lived here now into our 10th year. We'll be here for years to come, and we want to make an impact at the level of education so that we can see it be all that it can be. Thank you.
What measures are necessary to protect our students, faculty, and staff from violence in schools? Mr. Sharrouse?
Well, as a parent, this concerns me as much as anything else. I release my children into these schools every day. I was with my first grader at bedtime just a couple of weeks ago, and she began to describe in detail for me the recent active shooter drill that they had had at her school, Irving Park Elementary. And she said, "Dad, we hide near the books because then if somebody comes in, we can throw books at them." That's what my first grader knows, and it guts us to have to admit that. And so our schools have to do all that they can to ensure safety and security. I respect the work that the board has done in the past to make sure that we can do the most we can in the entryways to be as safe as possible. But friends, I also have to say, we cannot saddle our educational system and our educators with the primary issue here, which is excessive accessibility of guns in this country and our idolization of the gun above all else. And again, we force local institutions to compensate for failure of leadership at the much larger level. So I want to do everything I can as a citizen and in any leadership capacity, including the school board, to advocate for common sense gun legislation. We must do that even as we do all that we can at the individual level to ensure that our children are protected with everything that we can give them at their local school. I also think safety has to include anti-bullying practices and access to school counselors and mental health professionals that can support our kids through the most difficult times and struggles of their lives. And I'm particularly committed to safety and inclusion for our LGBTQ students and teachers, and believe that has to be an absolute part of any measure of safety that we extend to our schools.
Ms. Carter?
Safety in our schools is one of the 4 pillars of my platform. We have teachers that are afraid of their students. We have girls who are fighting other girls. We have boys that are fighting boys. We have both girls and boys that are fighting SROs and the police. We need to understand what these triggers are. I have an idea, but I'm not an expert in violence. We know that the type of violence that occurs in high schools would be different from the type of violence that could occur in middle and elementary schools. At the lowest level, we have generally someone from the outside trying to gain access and kill little children. We need to harden those assets. We need to make sure that teachers and principals and everybody in the school are aware of all of the safety protocols and understand how to alert authorities when they encounter someone who is unauthorized but has gained access to the system, to the school. Now you're moving to the middle schools and the high schools, where mostly you're going to find violence being perpetrated by the students either on their teachers or on each other. We need to figure out what's going on with that. And right now, we don't have a handle on that because there've probably been at least 10 fights. Some of you may have seen them on the internet between boys in high schools, in middle schools. We need to get in there and stop it. One of the things that I propose is to have a male parent, grandparent mentoring buddy system. Thank you.
Thank you. In October 2021, the American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the Children's Hospital Association declared a national state of emergency in child mental health. There are soaring rates of depression, anxiety, trauma, loneliness, suicidality in children and adolescents. What do you recommend doing within the school system to address these concerns? Ms. Carter.
Well, my first question has to do, what do these mental health experts attribute these symptoms to? Is it because they were in isolation for the previous 18 months? They could not go out and play with their friends? They couldn't go to school? There was no in-person learning? Do you have any more information that you can give?
That is the recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the Children's Hospital Association, as it relates to the Children's Hospital Association. Now,
okay.
They actually declared it a state of emergency because of the depression, anxiety, loneliness, and suicidality in children and adolescents. And what the question is what do you recommend doing within the school system to address any of these concerns? Whether those concerns are depression or whether those concerns are trauma or loneliness, I'm sure the school system will work toward finding the basis upon which these occurrences are apparent. But I would hope that the school board those on the school board could come up with some recommendations as to how they might handle that on site at the school.
Are you going to hold me to 30 seconds?
Take her back to the beginning, please. I appreciate that.
So let me go back to my initial statement. Usually there's no diagnosis unless the patient has been examined and the cause of the depression, the illness, the suicidal tendencies are identified. How can anybody on any school board recommend a solution if they don't understand the cause? Is the cause the closure of the schools? Open the schools back up. Is the cause virtual learning? Stop virtual learning and get back to in-person learning. Do students want to commit suicide because of what? What trauma has occurred in their lives that caused this? A divorce? What? You cannot offer solutions until you know very well what the issues are. And so I don't have any solutions to what a medical doctor has said is a diagnosis and is a problem. But I'm willing to listen to doctors. I'm willing to listen, and I think the school board ought to listen to experts on this matter to figure out whether or not the school is the best place to address these issues. If it is, fine. But schools cannot be everything to everybody all the time. It has to pick and choose what its proper mission is. Thank you.
Would you like me to read the question again?
I think I got it.
Okay. Mr. Shiros.
Children are anxious because life is full of worry. Life is unsettling. It has always been this way. In my professional life as a pastor and as someone who journeys alongside people through tenuous times of life, I know that this is true of all ages. And the fact that we can talk about it with our children and about our children is such a wonderfully healthy response as a community, because the first thing we can do is to normalize mental health, to make sure that those who are dealing with mental health crises are treated with the same sort of dignity that anyone who's dealing with any illness is. It ought to be regarded with the same sort of courage as someone who's going through cancer treatment or heart disease. It is absolutely a normal part of human existence. We can make sure our children know that. We have wonderful resources within our community that do that, from the National Association of Mental Health to the Kellen Foundation. We can tap these resources and make sure that we are doing all we can. But within our schools, we can also make sure that we are prioritizing mental health professionals, that we are seeing that as a critical choice that we make with the funds allocated to us, that we are advocating for increased and full funding. That means that we don't have to choose between mental health and other forms of safety. But again, prioritizing mental health and school counselors is an enormous part of what it takes to run a healthy institution as a school. And we can also make sure that these resources are extended widely across our school community, that they're available to families regardless of socioeconomic status, that they are extended to all, that everyone has the same access to that care. And that is a commitment that we make in our public schools, that we will make the same resources and opportunity available to all, including our children who are dealing with mental health challenges. Thanks.
Our next question. Some states and school systems have recently begun to ban books. In Guilford County, each school has the same process for evaluating instructional materials and addressing challenges to those materials. What is your position on the Guilford County school system policy and procedure for banning books? If you could choose to ban a certain book, provide the types of books you would ban and explain why.
That's to me, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I am absolutely for uncensored freedom in education, for unrestricted leadership from our professionals. I trust the expertise of our educators. I trust the expertise of our school librarians to continue to do what they have done all of these years, which is to provide access to developmentally appropriate texts for children, and then to give parents and students, or students and those other adults that are advisors in their lives, the ability to make their own choices and decisions about their elective reading. I'm in favor of access to more books, not fewer, and I would resist any effort to restrict that, and I think merely a cursory view of history cautions us against anything even approaching the banning or the limitation of resources and books. I'm satisfied with the process to this point, to the leadership that our board has provided, which again puts the trust where it should be, which is with our professional educators who, in partnership with our parents and the other trusted adults in our children's lives, can continue to make these decisions and provide access to the resources that our kids need to continue to learn and to grow. We need not present some sort of conflict or lack of trust or characterize a lack of trust between librarians and educators and parents and trusted adults in children's lives. There is partnership there. There always has been. We know that. We value that in Guilford County, and we can continue to.
Ms. Collins?
First of all, I reject the premise of your question. Banning books, that's a word only a particular ideology uses. When I talk about books, sexually explicit books, I'm talking about restricting access. Let's start with the law. Providing pornographic material to children is illegal. I don't care how many awards that author has received. Ban books This is not Nazi Germany. Parents are not Nazis because they don't want their child to see men having sex graphically portrayed in a book. If you can't read a sexual passage from a book in front of a school board, why do you think it's appropriate to read it in front of an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old? Now, some of you think it's okay to explore the sexuality of children. I say that is totally off limits. They are not your children. They are not the librarian's children. They are not the media specialist's children. And the process that says parents don't have a right to object to that is wrong. Or even if they do object to it, they go through sham hearings because they're not in charge. They don't have a say in their child's education.
Thank you. Before I go further, I would like to remind everyone in the audience that you feel free to write any questions down, and one of our individuals will come and pick that up and take it to our screening table, and we will handle those questions toward the end as well. In your own words, describe diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what you do to support DEI in our school system. Ms. Carter?
Diversity, different skin tones, but not different thoughts. What was it? Equity, not equality of opportunity, but same outcome. How you achieve that is an impossibility. Inclusion. Let's get everybody under the sun, which is fine with me, because I don't care about your background. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what you look like. But we can have laws that deal with equality of opportunity that is affordable to everyone. That's how I define DEI.
Mr. Strauss?
Thank you, Dr. Hairston. A commitment to diversity and equity and inclusion is at the heart of my desire to run for school board, because I think these are ideals that are nurtured wonderfully through our school system, through the common commitment we can make to all of our children there. We know that our school system still suffers from inequitable outcomes, and we need to do all that we can at the local level, the institutional level, to provide access to all students, to work towards the equity that is entitled them, to make sure that everyone has what they need, what they are entitled to. But even as we do that at the local level, it is also vital to me that we name the cause of inequity throughout our society, at least along racial ethnic lines, which is racism and racial injustice. We know that it doesn't look like segregated lunch counters anymore, but it does look like inequitable outcomes, which we see in our education system, but we see in every other system as well, from healthcare to the economy. And we know that there are no differences between a black and brown child's ability to learn and a white child's ability to learn. And so we need to make sure that we are naming the root, the cause of racism, so that we can work against it. I am also equally committed to inclusion and equity along lines of sexuality and gender identity. I think schools should absolutely be the place where all are received and welcome, and where safe spaces are created for our students who are most vulnerable. And that includes LGBTQ students who are vulnerable to bullying and even to harm, not only from others, but from themselves. We have to protect the ability for their teachers to live fully into who they are, so that they can live fully into who they are, so that they know there's a place of safety where they are welcome and where they can be fully who they are, a wide space where they can grow into the fullness of who they've been created to be. Our schools can be that and must continue to maintain that commitment.
going to entertain our last question before we start the questions from the audience. So please, again, if you have questions, please make sure the ladies at our table here get those questions so we can include them in the questions to be answered from the audience. What are your plans to reduce the performance achievement gap between Black and brown students and white students in the Guilford County school system? Mr. Schruth?
Thank you. Well, again, this inequity is my primary concern. I do know that we have made important gains in closing the graduation gap between Black students and other students of color and white students. So I want to learn from our educators about how we've done that. Some of what I know is we have done things like trying to reduce discriminatory practices like testing, trying to practice restorative justice in our discipline, trying to make sure that parents all have access to equal supportive services and social capital, and also trying to make sure that there's flexibility at the local school level for teachers and principals to make the decisions that they are uniquely poised to make to ensure that kind of equity and movement towards greater justice for all. But again, I think we also need to do those individual things while naming the larger system of racism in our country. I'm committed to doing that and committed to making sure that we do that even in our education, that we provide opportunities for children to know the difficult history of our country. As Robert McAfee Brown, the Holocaust scholar, has said, we learn our history so that we do not repeat it. And what was true of that terrible Holocaust in Nazi Germany is certainly true of the Holocaust that was chattel slavery in America and the residual outcomes of that we still see today. Racism exists without racists. It does not need someone to boldly call out racist rhetoric. It's a system that was built and is functioning as it was built to function. And it results in inequitable outcomes even to this day, and we have to name that injustice if we're ever going to work against it.
Ms. Carter?
How many of you have ever experienced racism up close and personal? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. I don't see any black hands going up. I'm sorry, there you are, great. I have experienced it up close and personal. I was born at a time when this country was segregated. You want to talk about racism? You talk to me. You talk to that woman in the back about racism. I was in my teens when the Civil Rights Act of 64 was passed. I didn't go to an integrated school until I was in high school. You want to know what it's like being forced in segregation? You come to me. I can tell you, it's nothing like what it is today. I have lived in this country since that time. And don't talk to me about racism, because you don't have a clue. I'm angry because I hear a lot of people toss that word around as though it has meaning to them. It has no meaning unless you've actually lived it, unless you've actually experienced it. So don't talk to me about racism. I know a racist country, and this country is not racist. We've elected a black president twice. Our current school board is majority black. Are you calling them racist because of the inequitable outcome? Because 60% of black students are failing? Why aren't you blaming the school board who's black? The majority of them are black. Thank you.
And now we'll entertain some of our questions from the audience. And if you will keep me on task with time, I will appreciate it, Tracy. If elected, how would you work with board members on both sides of the political divide? Ms. Carter?
My first question is, how are they going to work with me? because I come to the board with a definite viewpoint about what's going on and why it's going on, and also about what's needed to be changed. I am willing to work with anyone, but I'm not going to be anybody's fool, and I'm not going to be anybody's patsy because they think an idea is good when I think the idea does not advance students and their learning. That's what I'm about, students and their learning. Thank you.
Mr. Short?
Thank you. Well, any elected official is a servant for all people, not simply those that voted for her or him or them. And I am certainly committed to being that in any public office or role as a public servant. It's already what I do in my professional life, and I certainly have a commitment and an ability to work widely across political lines to accomplish a sense of common good, to hold hands with people to the left of me and to the right of me, to move forward towards the justice and the equity that we certainly all want for our children. So I'm committed to that. I happen to think that what I want for our public schools is very close to what historic Republicans want for their public schools. Not extremist Republicans, but historic Republicans. And I believe I can move forward towards that, and I have an ability to work with people, to work with our board, to work with our educators, and not against them.
Our next question. For decades, the school board refunded to the routine maintenance that causes in many of the facilities problems. How would voters be assured the board will not repeat the same mistakes? In other words, I think this question is saying that the school board, the schools have had some renovation problems, and how would you ensure that these problems would not continue as it relates to its Guilford County schools? Mr. Shaw.
Well, thank you for the question. It's such an important question. It's one that I have experienced as a parent in the two schools where my children currently attend. So much deferred maintenance. That is not because of a lack of commitment to our buildings or a desire to see them improved. It has been because of a lack of funding and resources, as are so many of the issues with our educational system. Schools are not underperforming, they are underfunded. And our county said dramatically recently, we are committed to improving the environment in which our students learn and our teachers teach, and to all that extends from that. Not everyone on the school board supported that. Not everyone in our county supported that. The Take Back Our Schools movement put up signs saying vote no to the bond, but this community gave a mandate to us, resourced us, and this board is absolutely committed to seeing that through as efficiently as possible, and I would love to join in that vital work.
Our school systems are not under-resourced. Our school system has $1 billion at its disposal every year. $1 billion. I just learned that for the very first time, the board is now asking for a facilities master plan. That is, everything that's wrong in a school goes on that list. Every improvement that needs to be made goes on that list. It is prioritized. That's how you keep improvements up. You go down that list every year at the end of the school year, and you figure out which schools you're going to work on that summer, so that when the schools reopen that fall, improvements have been made, maintenance has been maintained and kept up. So no child is going to a school in winter without heat.
Thank you. This will be our last question from the audience. Valuing diversity is a core value of the Guilford County schools. How do you ensure that children of diverse family types are treated with equality? Please give an example, Ms. Carter.
How do I ensure that black children are treated with respect Is that is that the question?
That's
How do
all
I
it is.
ensure that white children are treated with respect? You simply do it. I don't hate anybody. I love children. Why I'm running for the school board. I hate what's going on to them, what's being done to them. I don't understand. First of all, I don't understand the question. That's probably why I'm having some difficulty in answering the question. Do you treat, I want to ask this of the League of Women Voters, do you treat a black person any different, a black member any different? Do you think they have values that are different from yours? That somehow they need to be treated with kid gloves? They have the same values that you do. But somehow we need to treat them differently?
I'm going to read this question again. Valuing diversity is a core value of the Guilford County school system. How do you ensure that children of diverse family types are treated with equality? That's all children with diverse family types are treated with equality. Please give example.
You want me to answer the question again?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Children of diverse backgrounds and family types includes children of all racial, ethnic backgrounds, and children whose families are composed of all forms of marriage and partnership, and that means LGBTQ plus families. Any place there is particular exclusion in our society, it is the responsibility of common good, just institutions to be particularly inclusive. And so we need to do that in our schools, and we certainly need to do that by embracing the ability for our teachers to live fully into who they are, to speak openly about their families and their partners, beloved partners. I have heard it said that we don't need to know the sexual orientation of our teachers. I disagree completely. I think that statement simply means we only need to know it if the teacher is heterosexual. We need to know it in all cases. We need teachers to be fully who they are so children can be.
And now we'll transition into our closing remarks. Mr. Schroes.
Thank you. Well, again, thanks to the League, to you, Dr. Hairston. This has been a conversation that I think illustrates all that is important about this election and the fact there are significant differences between us as candidates. I'm grateful for the opportunity to tell some of my story and to say again how much I believe in this community and how much I believe in the collective good of education. My children helped to teach me this throughout the 10 years nearly that we have been here in Guilford County. A refrain from the back of our minivan has been when we would drive by one of their schools, current or future, I would hear them say, "Hey, that's our school." And you can hear the pride in their voices. But there is a movement in this country that is eroding that pride, that is trying to manufacture outrage to try to get votes. It is seeking to make us afraid of our schools. It is portraying danger and deficiency at every turn. It is asking us to distrust and mistrust our teachers. And we absolutely cannot let that happen because it undermines the tremendous collective good that we can accomplish in a nearly unmatched way through public education. Friends, those are our schools, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Ms. Carter.
If you think my rage is faux, you're absolutely wrong. I am angry. I am angry at what's happened to Guilford County schools, and you should be too. I am angry that critical race theory has been introduced that says this country is a racist country that doesn't deserve to exist. You're all here. You exist. Do you also believe the United States needs to fall and be replaced by something else? We have no idea what that something else is. I am appalled that 60% of some of our children in Guilford County cannot read proficiently. Why aren't you appalled as well? What is the schools doing about it? I see no plan. I see nothing on the horizon. You want to talk about learning loss? Let's talk about learning loss. Let's talk about the billions of dollars that the federal government has given to the state of North Carolina, as well as to Guilford County. Do you know how much has been spent on tutoring, intense tutoring, that is supposed to close the gap? Less than 2%. I am angry, I am appalled at the LGBTQ agenda in our schools. I don't want to know what a teacher's sexuality is. And neither should your children. The fact that you don't see anything wrong with that worries me. You don't care about your child coming home and telling them...
Stop.
Yes, stop me before I keep on.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes the Guilford County at Large Board of Education Candidate Forum. The recordings will be posted on the League's website, lwvpt.org, and via the Greensboro Community TV within a few weeks. Remember, early voting begins October 20th and runs through November 5th. Election Day is November 8th. Don't forget to check out the vote411.org information that you received that's on the tables as you leave, or you may have received it as you came through the door. I'm going to transition over into the County Commissioner Forum, and if you'll just sit
Thank you, Ms.
tight,
Carter.
we'll be in about 2 minutes. Good afternoon again. My name is Emma Hairston, and welcoming you again. And I cannot say enough how much we appreciate your participation. Thank you all so much for being here. It just makes this all worthwhile. I'll begin by introducing each candidate, and then I'm going to outline the rules. Commissioner Kay Casher, our current at-large commissioner for Guilford County, Commissioner Casher. Our former Commissioner Alan Brunson, Mr. Branson. The rules. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for opening remarks. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. Please limit your response to your own ideas and your own campaign. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for closing remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer questions from the audience. Each candidate agrees to public review of the forum by participating in this forum. Each candidate agrees to participate in the candidate forum as stated in the letter of invitation. All candidate remarks will be timed to ensure equal opportunity to speak. The timers we will have 2 timekeepers. One will keep track of the time using a smartphone. The other will hold up signs for 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. Would you identify yourselves again so everybody can see? Thank you so much. And you did an excellent job. I will rotate the order of the questions so that each candidate has an opportunity to start first. But before I start, allow me to communicate the duties of the Guilford County Commissioners as retrieved from the website. The commissioners are responsible for adopting an annual budget and establishment of the property tax rate. They adopt ordinances or local laws that govern issues such as development, noise, and animal control. We'll transition right into our opening remarks. Mr. Branson.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jerry Allen Branson, candidate for Guilford County Commissioner at Large. I'm a former commissioner from 2012 to 2020. My wife Rhonda and I have 2 children. Alexandria is a 2020 graduate of the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. She is now a special education teacher in Guilford County school system. Our son Jonathan is a graduate of Southeast High School. Jonathan has entered the workforce as a 4th generation family member, which my wife and I currently run and own in Guilford County. Since 1946, her grandfather started the company, and we employ about 50 people. I'm a member of Tabernacle United Methodist, where I serve on the Board of Trustees, the Building Committee, and we just finished our first phase of our Christian Life Center. I've served on the Church Council, co-chair of the Worship Committee. I've spent my time serving in the fire service side with Mount Hope Fire Department. I've also been a coach to the kids in the community, and I look forward to continuing to serve whatever God has in His hands for me to move forward, whether it be on the county level or whether it be in the local level. I've also served on many mission teams out of the country and as a storm chaser within the country. So I look forward to your prayers, your support, and your vote. And most of all, my fellow colleague, my competition here to my left, we served together for 8 years. We did lots of good things for Guilford County, and she is a friend. We are on both sides as polar opposites, as a Republican and a Democrat, which is unfortunate. We were able to meet in the middle of the road and do lots of great things for lots of great people of all causes.
Commissioner Kathy?
Thank you, and good afternoon. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this session today. And thank you, Alan Branson, you are my friend. I'm Kay Cashman, Guilford County Commissioner at Large. I've been... It's the same problem. Let's go ahead. So, we'll do this.
That might be better. Yeah, watch it. It's about to fall off.
Thank you. Is that better? May I start all over, Madam?
Yes, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Pastor Strauss. So, good afternoon, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this session, and thank you to my friend Alan Branson for his comments. I'm Kay Cashman, Guilford County Commissioner at Large. I've been a commissioner for the past 18 years and have loved serving all the citizens across Guilford County. I'm now retired as a longtime business owner and operator of a retail furniture and decorating business. Also a longtime community volunteer and leader. As a commissioner, my pillars have been quality jobs, quality education, quality health care, and a safe environment. I've served in commissioner leadership roles locally, statewide, and serving on state and national boards of directors, as well as chairing state and national committees and commissioners. That's given me a broad view of ideas and services and resources that are available from not only the federal government, but across the U.S. from other counties and their experiences. And bringing those back have benefited Guilford County. Locally, we have taken a one-county approach when addressing infrastructure, housing, health, and other issues. Cities and townships cities and townships are included in the discussions and bringing their priorities and needs to the table, such as broadband gaps, water and sewer needs, housing, homelessness, and other issues. The Joint Capital Facilities Committee, of which I'm a member, will continue to review the school's renovation and construction projects that have been funded by the citizens' approval of the bonds. A housing task force will be meeting tomorrow with all the county representatives to set the format to address those critical needs. And I'm serving on that as well.
Stop. We are going to transition into our questions, but I'm going to have to ask if you would hold your applause because we have a time frame to be out of this beautiful facility. So if you just hold your applause to the very, very end. The first question,
It's just not working. Thank you, Bob.
How can the Board of Commissioners work with local governments in Guilford County and other groups, such as nonprofits, to solve our homeless problem for individuals and families? We'll start with Commissioner Cashel.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, our task force on homelessness and housing will be meeting again tomorrow, and we're bringing together representatives from cities, in our, from Greensboro and High Point and all of the townships in our county, along with nonprofits, church representatives, and any and everyone that might be connected, as well as someone from the Homeless Committee, to try to resolve some of these issues. The county has not been in the building business, but we are in the people business. And so we are approaching this as a one county issue. We know that out in the unincorporated areas, they're not necessarily experiencing homelessness now, but they may be as housing dries up for the lower or limited or lower income residents here. Working with nonprofits, I've been on the board of the COC, which is composed of a number of nonprofit organizations that address homelessness, and they have been in a real bind finding housing for people who have been priced out of the rental market as well as home ownership market.
Thank you. Mr. Brunson?
Affordable housing is a loaded topic. Coming from the construction industry, I think we're going to have to continue as a Board of Commissioners, the City Council of both Greensboro and High Point, to work for the small towns and municipalities throughout Guilford County. We see a lot of folks in tents on the side of the roads nowadays. We see a lot of folks under the bridge. Some of these folks suffer from mental health, which Kay and I have worked diligently on to create a new mental health facility in Guilford County. We worked many hours across the board, Republican, Democrat, to bring an opportunity for these individuals to get their lives back together, off the streets and back into a regular paying job. Working with nonprofits such as Habitat for Humanity, the United Way, the Salvation Army, and tiny homes is critical with the Board of Commissioners and moving things forward to keep folks off the streets and out of the woods. I see a lot of utility buildings as I travel North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, fifth wheel campers now that we as a community have got to work together. As I said earlier, I've worked in the mission field both locally, state level, in storms, out of state, and out of in foreign countries to build fallout shelters for those who live in some very, very poor conditions. So I'm willing to continue to fight and operate and serve and go to church under the bridge on a fairly monthly occasion to help those individuals to succeed and get their feet back under them and have an opportunity for success. Thank you.
Second question. With the increased need for mental health and emotional health services for children, how do you propose to address the issue in the Guilford County school system, Mr. Branson?
Over the period that I served from 2012 to 2020, we increased the nurses and CNAs within the school system every single year. No matter how much you continue to try to improve, we always need more and more and more. As I stated in my conversation just prior to this, throughout the mental health piece, we've created, as the board worked as the health department for some time while I was in the Board of Commissioners seat, to open a new facility over here off of Wendover for both children and middle-aged and older age people in two different silos. The thing that we have to be concerned with is federal regulation within the state of North Carolina. We can only build a 16-bed facility, and that's challenging because those laws were written back in the 60s, and our population has busted at the seams. North Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the country, so we only have 16 beds for both the children and then 16 beds for the adults, which is 32 in a county that's over 800,000 people is challenging. But that is, again, a federal law, and we're going to have to work through this. I think with counselors within the schools and hiring, as I said, 30 nursing positions and the CNAs, this is somewhat helpful along with counsel.
Thank you. Commissioner Cashin.
Thank you very much. It's kind of hard to not repeat some of the things that my fellow commissioner, former commissioners said. But going back to the establishment of the 2 mental health crisis centers, I was insistent that we have a center for adolescents and young adults. As we were evaluating how we could do this in all the meetings back and forth with Raleigh and across the state and looking at other facilities, it became more apparent to me the great need there. And in talking with teachers who didn't have resources to refer parents to for help with their children who had behavioral health issues, I became insistent. I was serving as vice chair of the Sandhills LME-MCO board then, and when the commissioners said, we only have enough money to do the adult center, we don't have enough for the children's center, I said, but that's where we can have the biggest impact. If there are behavioral health issues, they may be learning developmental issues, they may be substance use issues, they may be other behavioral health issues. If we can address them as adolescents and young adults, then maybe we won't be seeing them over in the adult center later. Well, we don't have enough money. Well, I'll go get it. I'll try to go get it. So I went to the Sandhills board and got them to commit $7 million and to build and to operate the Children's Center, which is why we have a Children and Adolescents Center. This is a tremendous resource. It's a walk-in. You can go to either of the 2 behavioral centers, and it's an integrated health. So if you have a behavioral health crisis and you go in, you're also going to be examined and assessed for whether you have high blood pressure, heart, whatever is going on, because it all is a part of the whole. And
Sorry.
thank you. This is my passion.
In May, the citizens of Guilford County passed a $1.7 billion bond referendum to prepare, rebuild, and improve our schools to handle evolving technology and proficiency needs today and in the future. The North Carolina Local Government Association has approved the county's application to issue the bond. When the bidding begins, how will you ensure that minority and small businesses participate in the contracting process? Commissioner Cashin.
Well, first off, the county allocates the money. We don't designate how it's used. However, we do have a joint capital facilities committee that will be overseeing this process of renovation and construction as it moves along, and it's going to be a long process. And we do require a percentage of minority businesses to be participating by the contractors. And I think the different contractors have different goals. Those will be reviewed, and it is a major issue, and we want to be sure that we have as high participation as possible. I don't know what the minimum will be, but I think the minimum probably will be 10%, but looking for more like 20%. But the question will be asked, and it will be on the table ongoing.
Mr. Branson.
MWBE participation within Guilford County as a whole has always been a small percentage point, and that's always controversial when you go to award the bid, whether it be the school system or whether it be the county. As the business owner of a third generation, my wife is the boss. You know, I listen to her. So I think it's crucial that we have this in place, and it is in place. We have about a 10 to 12, maybe 15% minority participation. We in Guilford County have hired directors to reach out to contractors within the state of North Carolina to participate in the bid process. A lot of times you get into the weeds of these contracts and they're confusing. We also have held classes to encourage MWBE business owners to participate in the bid process and the paperwork process to receive these awards and do these particular jobs. I can promise you, the gentleman that's at the top of the chairmanship in Guilford County right now, this is all he's ever strived for within Guilford County, and that's fine. He's from the Durham area, and there's also many folks on the Guilford County Board of Education who are looking for MWBE participation. My final point in this particular piece right here is, I personally don't care what your skin color is, whether you're male or female, where you're from, as long as you do the job professionally and perfect, where on the backs of the citizens of Guilford County, that doesn't cost us extra to go back and do change out orders and repairs that is done by sloppy work. Thank you.
All right. How would you propose awarding the remaining funds allocated to Guilford County from the American Rescue Plan, Mr. Branson?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Guilford County Board of Commissioners has awarded that particular money as of their last meeting. I think it was around $104 million. The Affordable Cares Money Act was not in operation in 2020 when I left the board. Neither did I know that the federal government was going to print millions and millions of dollars to disperse throughout the United States of America into local municipalities and cities. That being said, the first initial bond, which was $300 million on the ballot, is a Republican-led majority at that particular time. We had in the backs of our mind, before it went before the public, a $700 to $800 million process, and now that $300 million is setting at $470 million. So again, the monies that are dispersed, let's be careful as to how they are used, because currently with DPI in the $1.7 billion bond referendum that was just passed, monies from the Affordable Cares Act, and I know it for a fact, no matter how the judge ruled or how the Board of Elections ruled on local and state level, monies from that particular thing was spent and used, and that is illegal. Thank you.
Commissioner Cash.
Thank you very much. I think the press has covered the distribution of the ARP funds pretty thoroughly, but we did just recently award the balance of the $37 million of the $104 million. And what we tried to do was look at how can these funds be the most effective for the best long-term results for the most people in Guilford County. Placing those, and we had many, many meetings with people presenting their request for these funds, as you can well imagine. And they cover the waterfront, from housing and homelessness to behavioral health, substance abuse, health care, small business, economic, the arts, everything you can imagine in Guilford County. But what we also did was we asked the townships and the cities to submit the list of their most urgent needs that would qualify under the purview of these requirements. And all of the townships wanted money for water and sewer. So, and some wanted money for other things as well. So it gave us an opportunity to bring everyone to the table and to see what the greatest needs are across the county. And it was a real blessing to be able to have this one-time money to make major differences in the small communities as well as the larger cities, Greensboro and High Point. Costs have increased. Costs have increased in construction, as everyone knows, everywhere for all of the items involved. So where we are investing in, for instance, the schools, we're going to have more needs coming down the pipe, without questions. I don't think that what's been allocated will do all that we need it to do, but we'll have to find a way to make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be our last question. If there are any questions for the audience, if you'll bring those up as well. Many inmates in the Guilford County Jail suffer from substance abuse and mental health issues. What would you recommend to provide the assistance needed by these inmates? Commissioner Cashin.
Yeah, well, we understand that about 80% of those who are incarcerated have either mental health and/or substance abuse issues. We have what is called a reentry program in Guilford County that will address not only the health issues, but also help to prepare them to integrate back into the community, workforce development, prepare them for jobs, help them find housing. And this is proving to be very effective. So that is one thing that we will do. We also, I think we need to beef up our psychiatric services in the jails more than we have at this time, because there are a lot of veterans who are incarcerated with PTSD, and we need to be addressing that.
Thank you. Mr. Brunson?
Strong leadership is the first thing that comes to my mind with folks with rehabilitation problems that are currently incarcerated. As a lifelong resident of Guilford County, I remember the Guilford County Prison Farm well because I grew up in the southeastern part of Guilford County. That particular piece has currently been closed down. We now house these individuals to be able to go to school, to be able to get in the gym, to be able to work out. As a kid, when I grew up, these particular individuals were out in the streets cleaning up the roadsides. They would also do some work on the school grounds, which I know is challenging now with the background of the mental disabilities and whatever particular case they may be incarcerated for, if it's sexual abuse. So I understand a lot of that. We continue to need to offer programs in the jails to look after these individuals, to give them a step up, because a lot of times over 70% of these are reoccurring folk that enter the doors of Guilford County system. And I think it goes to the fact of we're getting further and further away from who's your mother, who's your father, who's your grandmother, who's your grandfather. We don't know what background a lot of these individuals come from, but it stems to, in my opinion, your Christian faith community and your family. If we get back to the family table and have discussions to help individuals, whether it be a child, I know parents of children who have many addictions, and these are good families, people from all walks of life, no matter what your skin color, no matter Republican or Democrat. I will stop. I see the sign. I can read.
We will now transition into our questions from the audience, and those will be 1 minute. If elected, how will you keep board spending in line with income without raising taxes? Mr. Brunson.
Well, that's going to be an interesting case. We won't have a reevaluation process for another 5 years. We just passed a budget of $861 million. And of course, our current board says it passed along party lines, 6-3, that, well, we didn't raise your taxes. The quarter-cent sales tax for this $1.7 billion plus the $300 million for the schools that's currently under construction, we're going to have funding from somewhere. So that means to me, the quarter-cent has been voted down twice. Folks, you need to pay attention because your taxes are on the rise. This last budget cycle, they gained about $91 million. So you need to have some business folks with a pretty sharp pencil to keep an eye on the whole crowd, both Guilford County and the Board of Education, because they will not watch your dollar.
I have to remind you, that's a part of my job as well. Ms. Casher.
Thank you. Yes, we did. People say, well, we didn't raise taxes. Well, we didn't really raise taxes, but your tax bill was higher. And it was based on the reevaluation of your property. Your property increased in value, and so did your tax bill. But, we have mandated services that we have to pay for in the county. And the difference there between the mandated services and what we allocate to the schools, 255 million of that was allocated to the schools. Then we have some leeway with the difference. But if we had passed the quarter-cent sales tax, that would have given us an option there, and we stated what that option would be. But that was not passed. The voters voted on the 1.7 billion, and now we have to do what the voters asked us to do. We're going to be taking care of the schools, and then we will see. Economic development will help to solve this by corporate investment. Thank you.
The last question from the audience. Guilford County Schools has an opportunity with our new reconstructed schools to incorporate solar power and reduce the overall cost of operations while reducing our community's dependence on carbon. How will this impact the way you think in considering the life cycle cost of the schools that install solar upfront? And what would we need to do to make this happen?
I'm going to go back to the joint schools and county capital facilities committee. I serve on that committee. We've already had one meeting and energy savings was brought up. I don't know that the construction people nor the school board will recommend solar, but I certainly think it should be considered. We also talked about design of the buildings and cost-saving possibilities there. This oversight committee is asking a lot of questions, and we will continue to ask those to look for efficiency and savings where possible so that our money can go as far as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Branson.
Can you repeat that question to me one more time, please? I was listening to
hard to
Kay's
get to
final
the question.
statement there. So,
I will indeed. Guilford County Schools has an opportunity with the new reconstruction of the schools to incorporate solar power to reduce overall cost and to reduce dependence on carbon. How important do you think it is to consider the life cycle cost of these schools by installing solar upfront, and what do we need to do to make this happen?
out of the gate, Northern Guilford comes to mind first as one of the newer schools within Guilford County. We did a lot of different means of green construction in this particular project. It was very expensive, it was way over budget, and now the opportunity to maintain it is also very expensive. I think in the design phase where we're at $470 million plus currently on the $300 million piece has come in on design. You build bricks and mortar structures with good quality heat and air conditioning and technology for the schools. Our public education system is not performing well with graduates who cannot read at the proficient level currently. We need to be concerned in Guilford County schools about educating our children of all races, sex, color, and creed to the best of their ability and not worry about solar.
Thank you, Mr. Brunson. We are now moving into our closing remarks. Mr. Brunson?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule. Dr. Hairston, for your professionalism. And today, a lot of this opportunity started back in 07 and 08. Paul Gibson was the chairman of the Guilford County Board of Commissioners, along with current chairman Alston. At that particular time, we were in a recession. We're still currently in a recession as we're moving forward today. I think after this election, you're going to see things bottom out. At that particular time, $3.2 million was cut from Guilford County budget for 3 years in a row. Our current chairman, who is a champion now for this $1.7 billion, thinks he's the greatest thing since high-top tennis shoes. I think different. We need to go back to 06, 07, 08. I've got the numbers right here in front of me. The papers won't print it. but they cut the budget funding to the schools. Also during COVID, the school system closed the maintenance down. That's the most crazy thing I have ever heard tell of in my life. You have no students in school, so we lay the construction folks off in the facilities maintenance. We have to pay attention to what Guilford County Schools facilities and their leadership role is doing. I'm going to give a pass to the new superintendent in hopes that she is going to do a much better job than what we hired from out of New York and brought in here, because under her time of leadership, I don't think there was anybody in the school system that could read a blueprint professionally. Thank you.
Commissioner Castro.
Thank you very much. Throughout my service as a commissioner, I've tried to be a good steward of our county's resources to assure financial stability and continuing of services. Investment in economic development is a given now, but also important is the investment in mental health and substance use services, housing options, and a strong educational system, including appropriate and safe facilities. Much of my focus has been on the operation of the Family Justice Center, the Behavioral Health Crisis Centers, and now an initiative that I'm working on that addresses a gap in behavioral health services. The county just set aside funds for a transitional housing and services facility with women with children who are in recovery. This will have a huge impact. They need housing, counseling, child care, etc., all in a supportive setting, and they can't do it alone. Available affordable housing is at a crisis. Those on limited, low, or fixed incomes have few or no options. I have been serving on the COC for some time and know their struggle to find housing options for these people, both the homeless and those needing affordable housing needs. Our newly formed task force on housing will be addressing this. It will include and does include the mayors of both cities and of our township, as well as other people in the community. I have enjoyed fielding questions and problem solving with folks from across the whole county. My service has been recognized statewide by naming me the Outstanding Commissioner of the Year in 2019, and also the Governor's Award of the Order of the Long-Lived Pine. I have the interest, the enthusiasm, the experience, and the time to serve as your at-large commissioner, and that it needs and deserves. Thank you very much.
Sorry I had to do that. I mean, that's what we have to do. Thank you all so much for coming out today and indulging me and the League of Women Voters and leading and guiding, letting me guide you through this program. This concludes the Board of Commissioners at Large Forum. Again, the recording will be posted on the League's website, lwvpt.org, and via Greensboro Community TV within the next week. As a reminder again, early voting begins on October 20th through November 5th. The statewide elections, of course, is November the 8th. And don't forget to check the vote411.org information that was handed out to you as you entered, or I think there might be some more on the table. Before I thank you for attending today, I'm not going to leave this podium without asking each and every one of you to join the League of Women Voters. The beautiful thing about this organization is we come together. Political differences, when we put the political differences, but we come together and get the work done for this wonderful community that we live in. And a community